Hi there. Over the last 11, almost 12 months, my wife, Dr. Michelle, and I were able to travel around the state of Oklahoma holding a Republican platform in one hand and a Constitution in the other. Obviously, we're doing this in the gubernatorial run for the state of Oklahoma. And boy, did we learn a lot of things, enlightening things, as well as some disappointing things. Wouldn't trade this situation for the world, wouldn't trade what we learned for anything. But boy, let me just say it was an enlightening experience, to say the least. I was asked many times to discuss the term rhino. What is a rhino? What does that mean? What does that mean to you and I? How do you define that? And I collaborated with a wonderful dear friend of mine to come up with the following thoughts regarding the idea of a rhino. Candidly, the more I think about it, the term Republican in name only, or rhino, assumes that there is some kind of a pure, pristine standard of republicanism which candidates and politicians are failing to meet. I would submit the problem is much more fundamental than that. It isn't so much that people are departing from the party platform as it is that the party itself is not really being responsive to the values of the people. As I see it, it's not a matter of getting people to go back to being real Republicans. It is determining what is a real Republican. Better yet, what is a real conservative who conserves traditional American values non-politically. A Republican should be one who upholds, supports, and defends the Republic. And it's more than just a political party name, folks. Right now, if I had one word to suggest the motto of GOP, it is this: opportunism. I would say in no uncertain terms that the Republican Party has outlived its usefulness. It is Democrat light at best. It is total corruption and treason at worst. What we see today is a far cry from the Republican Party founded in 1854, which gave us Abraham Lincoln. This isn't even the party of Dwight Eisenhower or Barry Goldwater. It most definitely does not live up to the ideals of, Ronald Reagan. In its place today is a political organization of opportunistic wimps desperately in search of more places to wimp out. Republicans are so busy cannibalizing one another that they can't possibly see the common enemy across the aisle. A better term we should probably use is pseudo-conservative. The GOP today is not conserving our traditional American values. It is not standing up for Christian principles. It is the party of the big tent, which has even perverted the long-term log cabin Republican in reference to its members. My home state of Oklahoma is a prime example. It proudly displays the banner of the reddest state in America. Yet, voters consistently chose pseudo-conservatives in our recent GOP primary, all the way from governor to statewide offices to national offices representing Oklahoma on Capitol Hill. Republicans are famous for one thing: talking a good fight. But when the rubber meets the road, all they do is spin their wheels. You only have to look at the top-ranking Republicans in both the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives to see that there is no passion for stopping the outright assault on America being conducted by our current Democrat Party. But while today's GOP is not the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy would not recognize the Democrats of today either. Today, there is really only one political party, and it is comprised of oligarchy. Unfortunately, this is a swamp which Donald Trump tried to drain, but he had absolutely no idea how deep it was or how vicious the swamp critters were. How he even put up with many of them in his own administration and they turned against him is beyond my wildest dreams. Since he left office, he's been endorsing people who did the best job of buttering him up. Mostly his endorsements have been based upon non-merit factors of people he doesn't know personally and whose records he doesn't care about either or know. As we begin America's marathon campaign season, We need to step back and take a deep breath and realize that it is not headed where we hope it is headed. While Donald Trump is exponentially better than Joe Biden, he is first and foremost the most polarizing individual in America today. You either love him or you hate him. Neutrality is not allowed or even conceivable. Now, people don't get on the Trump train because they are ultra-conservative. They do it because they're caught up in a cult of personality. This is America in a nutshell today. This is a short attention span society where sound bites and video clips are more important than this thing called substance. Just look at the political debates every 4 years. It is a circus. Candidates are grandstanding and calling each other names. They're comparing the size of their various anatomical parts. But do they ever really discuss the serious issues of the day? I think not. This so-called new disease, this Trump derangement syndrome, it actually works both ways. Nobody can think about him rationally, whether they like him or even hate him. Either way, they're relying upon emotion rather than reason. If Trump wins the GOP nomination in 2024, it will all be about personality and all the important issues of the day will be totally buried. If we continue on this trajectory, even if the GOP manages to eke out a small majority in both chambers of Congress, they will do nothing worthwhile with this time either, just as they blew golden opportunities every time they had the advantage in the past. The problem is that dyed-in-the-wool Democrats are totally committed to their cause, distorted and warped as it is. Republicans are committed to only one thing, their own career, greed for wealth and power. They'll compromise anything and everything to perpetuate their own positions. This is where the old concept of republicanism breaks down in our day and age. Never mind who said it first. Democracy really is two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner. That's why our founding fathers gave us a republic better than a democracy, as Benjamin Franklin declared. We elect surrogates rather than directly voting on every issue. The problem is when the surrogates no longer base their actions on the wishes of their constituents, but rather do whatever is most politically expedient for themselves at that very moment. We need to quit talking about rhinos. We need to immediately begin a search for any real conservatives still alive out there. None of them is going to be perfect. The only person who agrees with you 100% of the time is, well, yourself. Or maybe sometimes you even second guess yourself. But nobody will be the perfect candidate. You're going to have to pick the one who represents your values the majority of the time as the least worst choice. In red states, Republican candidates emphasize abortion as a key issue, whereas in blue states, Republican candidates soft pedal the issue. If abortion is murder, it is just as much murder in a blue state as is a red state. The problem is that they aren't really focusing on what really matters. All most candidates do is pick and choose and concentrate on those hot button issues which he or she thinks will make him or her most electable in their own unique political environment. Conservatism is no longer an ideology. Its extent and application are totally strategic rather than philosophical. A Republican candidate in Oklahoma can say that he will stop all abortion on day one. A Republican candidate in Hawaii, on the other hand, will just hem and haw and say, well, personally, I'm pro-life, but I realize I can't overrule the will of the people in the legislature in this blue state, so let's talk about the economy instead. I ask you, truly, is that conservatism, or is that nothing but pure D-politics? Is there such a thing as right or wrong? Is there a higher standard? All the Supreme Court did recently in overturning Roe v. Wade was saying that it's legal and ethical to murder a baby in one state but not another. Is that really what the authors of the U.S. Constitution intended? Folks, the 10th Amendment is what it is. It works well in red states, but not so well in blue states if you're the one who holds conservative values. The point is that the Republican Party is not the conservator of traditional values. It is simply a power broker nothing more and nothing less. It provides a power base and source of financing for those candidates whom it favors. It totally ignores all those who base their campaign on deeply held values rather than cronyism. So the term Republican in name only, or rhino, really doesn't mean anything because the label Republican doesn't really mean anything. It could mean a Turkish Muslim running as a Republican in Pennsylvania who squeaked out a victory because he had publicly complimented Donald Trump. To round this out and wind up, when we talk about pseudo-conservatives, we need to consider what it is that we're trying to conserve anyway. Our founders were not evangelical Christians as we often think of them today. The terms Unitarian and Deist are more appropriate in some cases. But they did have a common belief in divine providence. They also believed that divine providence would come from the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition. If we're trying to conserve the adhesive that has kept America from coming unglued during the last 250 years, we need to dispense with politics and get back to basics. Members of Congress, governors, mayors, and other elected officials don't even understand the United States Constitution they swear on oath to uphold. If there's one thing we can all agree upon to conserve, it is that our republic must be a constitutional republic. Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and Rashida Tlaib of Michigan have a D after their name. Dr. Oz has an R after his. Obviously, each one of them is a private citizen, the absolute right to believe anything they want. It's also understandable that the Democrats would elect them to Congress. It's rather unfathomable, however, that the Republican Party would find common cause with such a candidate. That's why it makes no sense at all to say Republican in name only. Mitch Romney is a Republican. So is Mitch McConnell. What has either one of them done for you lately? A senator represents his own state, but his votes will impact the whole country. What values bind all Republicans together? Are there any? In this day and age, when supposedly a person can choose their own gender, apparently all you have to do to be a Republican is say you're a Republican. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you do. It's all a matter of self-identification. I'm a Republican. How dare you say I'm not? I can be indistinguishable from a Democrat, but that R after my name means that I'm a Republican. Like it or lump it. Maybe it's time that we decide to lump it rather than like it. Now, those who believe in and want to conserve traditional American and even Christian values have been totally disenfranchised. It isn't a question of leaving the Republican Party. It's the realization that the Republican Party, who courted us for so many years, has already left us behind and eloped with that harlot down the street who sells herself to the highest bidder. And I'll leave you with this. What is a Republican? What does it mean to be a conservative? If you said it's a path to political power, you just got an F on the exam. But your success in the next election in a red state is virtually guaranteed. Now therein lies the problem. So I'll leave you with this. Where so do we go from here, America? Stay tuned. Just stay tuned. Thank you for your attention. May God bless you, and may God bless these United States of America.